Hello, welcome back. My name is Kevin Daniels.
And I'm Ashley Turner.
And this is episode 2 of Selling Everett. I would say we're knee-deep in a recession right now.
Yeah. I keep seeing the article saying it's coming.
It's coming.
But that I feel like it's here.
I think we're all feeling it right now.
I went to buy shampoos and soaps and things the other day, and we were looking at the prices, and we're like, it's recession prices! And everything is like $2 or $3 more, and that's how we feel right now. So
that's how you feel.
Yeah.
I would definitely say I recently went on a trip to New Mexico. And the gas prices there were infinitely more affordable than they are here in Washington. And I saved $40.
I wish. I feel like I'm either in $80 to $100 every time I fill up. And then every once in a while I'll see someone that's below $4 and I'm like, pull over, get gas. It's time because, it's ridiculous.
Awesome. So what's going on in the real estate?
So Everett is pretty slow, I feel like, right now, which is fine. Our average prices are about $628, $630. Still up. But I've definitely seen price drops happening. So I think that number is going to change pretty drastically with next month's numbers. So I've seen $10,000, $20,000, sometimes $30,000 less. So if you want to buy,
now's the time.
Now's the time.
To negotiate.
Yeah. It's fun negotiating right now. I'm getting some closing costs covered, $20,000 under, in some cases a little bit more, like $40,000, just kind of depends.
I have recently had a buyer put in an offer and the seller was being a little bit difficult and didn't want to budge on price, even though they've been on the market for the last 6 months.
Yeah, I just had one that we were kind of fighting with. They were on market for 70 days and we offered less, but we asked for some closing cost help, and they were like, no. So we didn't get that, but we offered less. So It was fine. It worked out in the end.
You can't get your offer accepted, and you can't get what you want if you don't ask for it.
Totally. And I say it's worth trying. And right now, there's only, in the Everett area, 65 homes for sale. So if you're buying, there's not a whole lot of inventory, but a lot of those homes are still sitting, at least 15 days on market, if not more. We're sitting closer towards 45, 50.
Right. Would you say, because that's like a national thing, it's just the incredibly short housing pitfalls that we're getting right now. Mm-hmm. Do you see that as just a continued problem, especially here in the winter months in Washington?
Yes. I think if you're trying to sell, you need to price accordingly for
a slow market.
The winter market, right? The winter market's always going to be slow, but I think that it's also, I really want to be in my house before Christmas. So all my contracts that are in right now, they're like, can the lender close before Christmas? And I'm like, we can ask. But it's just this process of I want to have Christmas at home. I want to do this in my new home, blah, blah, blah. And same on the other end for the sellers, right? I want to be out of my house before Christmas. I want to be in the next house before Christmas. But now I'm having these debates and fights with my clients about, okay, if you want to do that, we need to price it here. And if you don't want to price it here, we're going to be sitting. And then, 45, 50, 60 days. And then they're wondering why it's not selling as quickly. And it's this is the market we're in right now. It's just going to be slower. The rates, as you know, have been affecting our buyers in not the best of ways.
Well, the good news is a couple of weeks ago, the CPI numbers, which is the Consumer Pricing Index, came out, and inflation has actually gone down just a smidgen.
Heck yeah.
Right? So it's below 8%. It did see a little bit of relief on the interest rate side.
Cool.
So I haven't seen any huge volatility. It's still high.
Right.
Relatively speaking to what they were last year. Mm-hmm. So you're still in the high 6s to low 7s, credit dependent. Talk to your lender before.
This is true. Totally credit dependent. Ask. It's important to ask.
I am not quoting interest rates here.
Yeah,
this is a legal disclaimer.
I've noticed some of my buyers, when the interest rates, I've had some shopping for well over a year, and they just couldn't get in the door, which is fine. We only had so much cash to play with and stuff, but they've been slowly losing approval numbers every time the interest rate went up. And then now, with the market being slow, I'm it might be time to go shopping again. Because again, I've been getting things under contract $40,000 under the list price. So I am now trying to get to all those buyers and be like, it might be time to play again because
it's worth it.
It's worth it. And if it's not for you, then it's not. But I in some areas that some of my clients were looking, I've noticed they're finally under like 400,000 again. I'm like, cool. Like, let's do this.
That's pretty good.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's been a crazy ride these last few months, but thankfully, getting some good deals. So
Good deals. I think good deals will continue.
Saving some monies.
It's real estate. Everyone's going to have to move. Everyone's going to have to sell and buy forever. That's just how this goes.
That is what it does.
It just depends now what that driving force is going to be. So I think we'll see more of like divorce or a death in the family or something like that that's going to be causing these moves or work, right? You're moving across state, but that's just going to keep our inventory low because our sellers most likely can't afford to buy the next place either. So you're just kind of in this vicious cycle of, oh no, how do we get out of this?
Well, some good news though. You recently said before we started recording that over 73% of the homes in Everett sold were to first time or home.
Yeah, I know. It says that we're mostly an owner occupied city, which I think is really cool.
I think so.
Yeah. It kind of goes back to what we'll be talking about later today is like the history of the different neighborhoods and how, we were a logging community and we worked on the river, we worked on the waterfront, and it's always been, an owner-occupied situation for the most part, and everyone owned their little tiny, I would call them shacks, like one bedroom, one bath house. Of course, they had like 19 children in them, which is fine. Things were different back then, but it's just, we're a young city in terms of cities.
Yeah.
The side note right now, we just went over to the Evergreen Cemetery over the weekend because why not? And it kind of just shows you, it's gorgeous. I totally recommend a visit. It was really pretty.
Wanted to clean it all up.
I do. I want to clean up all of the headstones. I was like saying hi to everybody and, talking to all of the names. And the Rucker family is kind of one of like the founding families of.
They do have a street.
They do have their own street. They have a mausoleum that's like a pyramid in the top of the cemetery. It's massive. It's really cool. It says it's for mother, but I've been told that everybody else is buried in there. I don't know, but if it's just for mom, like, hell yeah, good on you kids. Yeah, like, they loved you, but it's not that old. I mean, like, we're talking like 1860s, 1870s, 1890s.
It's not old.
Those are the oldest ones we have in our cemetery. So it's, still young, and it's kind of weird to see the dates.
Statistically right now, nationally, the average age of a homeowner is 32 years old.
Hey, that's kind
millennials.
Of us. I know, that's the millennials.
I was like, I am the statistic.
Always. The millennials will always be the statistic. That's just how this works.
Right, so that's always good. And to know, especially in this city that we live in, that it is first-time home buyers, it is homeowners themselves, right? Nothing to say against any investors or stuff like that, right? Because real estate is
still love them too.
Fantastic investment. But especially for our jobs, it helps to know that the people who are purchasing the houses are actually occupying the houses and calling them home.
Right.
Especially in our own town.
And and calling them our neighbors, right? So it's just growing this community of people. And with that statistic, a lot of them are millennial generation. And honestly, like, high five. I feel like we've had a rough go of it. Recessions and lack of jobs and college and everything that was involved with our life so far. It's been not super easy with a lot of debt involved. So the fact that a lot of us are able to buy houses, heck yes, like, bring it on. So if you're a millennial and you want to buy a house, call us.
You know who to call. Your fellow millennials.
Yeah, your fellow millennials. Oh, could that be like our hashtag? I don't know.
Fellow millennials.
Fellow millennials. It's probably taken.
That's probably everything millennials.
Everything's taken.
But I feel like this is a good point to transition to what we're actually going to be talking about a little bit in our podcast today. Is we really want to do a deep dive on all of the communities that are in the Everett, municipal area.
Yeah.
And our first one is the Riverside Neighborhood.
The Riverside Neighborhood.
The Riverside Neighborhood.
Most north part is 19th Street.
Yep.
The most west is Broadway, so that kind of gives you your corner, and then your most south is Pacific, and your most east is the Snohomish River.
Right.
So kind of right by, by the freeway there. So it's
Broadway
nice
kind of bisects the entire downtown area.
Broadway is the main boundary line, I think, for all of our neighborhoods. And then Rutgers, like the other alternative, I can think to that, to like Evergreen, and when you get down more south.
Would you say the Riverside neighborhood is primarily residential?
Yes.
Yes.
I what I like about my little neighborhood though is, and I wish it would have a little bit of a comeback, kind of dispersed in different streets, little tiny grocery store.
There's a few.
Yeah, there's a few. We have a bunch. One of my favorites is the Market Basket, which is 19th and Walnut. Mm-hmm. I can walk to them from my house, so they see me a lot, and it's just nice to have. And yeah, there's a couple that have like burnt down recently, which is super depressing. So I'm hoping that like maybe something will pop up, maybe a cafe. I would love for it to be a little more user friendly with like a cafe or, you know, a place to get sandwiches or like even pizza, something like that. I think that that's one thing we're missing in our little square. But we're close.
Food.
It's food. It's important.
People need food.
Yeah.
In their houses.
Or like a little like wine bar. I don't know. Just, you know, something to do that's walkable. And we're pretty close to other things that are walkable because we are so close to Everett Avenue.
Yeah.
And Everett Avenue is in that kind of boundary line. There's different things there. There's a couple bars in that area too. So, you know, it kind of gets all the things covered. But
it's a busy section.
It is a busy section. I actually, fun history story of that. Everett Avenue in Walnut, where the Shell gas station is.
Yeah.
That's always been a Shell gas station. I was looking at the history websites. I know. It's always been a gas station, and it was always Shell. So from like 1890s or something, it's always been a Shell gas station. So I kind of love that for Everett. Like, what? A Shell gas station to live.
That is actually my husband's favorite gas station.
Interesting. It's so expensive. Why is it his favorite?
Because the owner's a really good owner. And
they are.
Very well.
They are very nice in there, and they have everything. So I get it.
It's pretty nice.
But they're expensive. Every time I drive by, I'm like, oh, no, I have to get gas, and it's going to cost me an extra 10 or 20.
It's convenient, though, because it's right on the entrance to the I-5.
They do get you that way. I mean, makes sense.
Convenience of a convenience store.
How dare they?
But I think that is pretty cool. Just the simple fact that in that one thing that you would think Shell is a pretty modern company, but is actually a very old company.
Right.
That spot has been in existence.
Yeah, and it's just always been the same. They could have easily turned into a different gas station somewhere. Has not.
It's very easy to.
Yeah. So like continue though with like the Everett vibe of where it's come from. It is the oldest neighborhood of Everett, and it's been around since 1892, which is kind of cool on that part. Mm-hmm. Again, a lot of smaller houses, so we have a lot of 2-bedroom, 1-baths, random 1-bedrooms that pop up, and you're like, good for you, 1-bedroom house that you're still around. And then kind of that traditional where they have the attic. Yeah. And that's been converted into a 2-bedroom or some kind of living space. So you have a lot of those. But yeah, it's just a cute little area, a lot of history.
Good for first-time home buyers.
Good time. Yeah, right. My house was built in the 40s, so not super old, not super young. Just kind of in the middle. It makes me happy.
Right.
Where was I going to go with that though? Oh, the roads. My favorite thing about the roads, we had a trolley, everybody. A trolley.
Way back in the day when trolleys were the thing.
I wish we had a trolley. So from my understanding, Everett Avenue had a trolley.
Yes.
And that kind of took you to the water for work and then back down to the other side, which is the Riverside.
Well, funny thing too, Everett Avenue actually had a wooden bridge to go over the Snohomish River.
I know.
No longer there.
And I've heard many horror stories reading the history books about that little bridge, and it was a one-laner. And if you got stuck behind a horse carriage, you were there forever trying to get across it. And it would constantly like flood over it. And then you couldn't there was like all these stories in this one book. So there's a book called Riverside Remembers. And it's a really cool book. It took me a really long time to find it, actually. I had to
Where'd you find it?
Some guy in Maine had it or something. And I found it online.
Maine?
Yeah, I know. I was like, what is going on?
In Washington?
Yeah, I'm not sure. But the Riverside neighborhood, we don't have an HOA, but we have like an association.
I saw that. They have the whole neighborhood webpage.
Yeah, no, we've got our own little dedicated thing. They have monthly meetings. And we do fun things at Halloween. We get best house, best block. I won best block this year, I won't brag. And then we'll do the same thing for Christmas. So there'll be best block, best house. They have all these different subcategories. It's cool. And I don't have to pay any HOA fees. So you know how I am about HOA fees. I understand why they're needed. I just don't want to pay them. So
she gets after me because I live in an HOA. It's because my houses are newer in my
it makes sense in his situation that he has an HOA. It's nothing wrong with an HOA. I call code enforcement if there's something wrong in my neighborhood.
Code enforcement.
I have. Don't tell anybody, guys, that I've done that. I have. There's just some.
Hopefully your neighbors don't listen to this.
No, hopefully not. There was one car where there were blackberry bushes growing inside the car, and then out. Like the car has become the bush, and I called and I was like, "This is ridiculous! Like, get rid of the car or get rid of the bush."
It's an art piece at this point.
Essentially, it was an art piece, and I was like, so, and I see it when I'm leaving, because I made a big deal about it, and they cleaned it up, so that made me feel better.
Right.
So there was that.
No, and I think something too that we're going to find out with a lot of Everett neighborhoods is that they do have their own little association.
Yeah.
To preserve, the integrity of the neighborhood and maintain that sense of just a community itself.
Yeah, and I mean
this is fantastic.
Yeah, this one has done a well done job with the Riverside Remembers. I don't even know how many chapters. It's a quick, maybe every person had 4 pages, but I think they did it in the 80s, and they went around and asked people to tell them their story of living in Everett.
That's cool.
So they're just all different stories. You have the guys that were working in the logging community in 1901, 1902, what they did, how it was. One guy was talking about how he had the horse in the trolley situation to move the logs around, and then someone showed up with a Model T. It's just a really cool book to read, so I recommend. And maybe we can figure out how to get more copies of it if people want to read it, or an exchange situation, because it's a cool book, fun stories.
I just love all the old stuff.
I do love all the old stuff. I did study history, everybody.
Me too.
I thought I wanted to be a lawyer. No, not for me.
Real estate's good enough in terms of...
Real estate enough law for me that I'm just no more. Yeah, no more legal.
Awesome. Well, I think we could owe a little bit of praise to the actual, architect of the Riverside neighborhood, Mr. Frederick Sexton.
Yeah.
If you want to... He was born in England in 1851. As most, of course, Americans, they're immigrants, so they come over here and they find their lovely little plot of land to call home.
And he was kind of aggressive to just be like, I'm going to Washington. So I mean, that's some Oregon Trail stuff going on. I would assume.
The opportunity was there to go west in the 19th century.
Yep, I probably would have jumped on that ship, because why not?
Why not?
It wasn't a ship, but.
The train?
The wagon. Not even a train, the wagon. I would have jumped on that wagon. I played Oregon Trail, I know what's up. I have died of dysentery at least 9 times.
Dysentery in your life? Oh, God.
Oh, no, I keep dying. Weird. And then it says he was in Illinois, and then he studied architecture in Chicago. So, I mean, just thinking of that, of the time and learning, that kind of reminds me of the book, The Devil in the White City. And it's all about, you should read that book. It's supposed to be a movie. I don't know. We'll see. It's about a serial killer. Side note, but it also talks about the architecture.
I know. Serial killer. Lovely.
It's great. But it's about the architecture of, what's going on at the World's Fair and stuff like that. So he was in, the deep of what was going on in the Chicago area and what was being built. And some of the best architecture in my mind is in Chicago. I love going there to look at stuff. So it's
some of the large older cities too in the United States, just renowned for their architecture, right? And you could definitely say just the West Coast itself is not as old in terms of the United States.
Right.
So we kind of lack some of that old school architecture.
Right. Sometimes some of the buildings are this is the oldest one from the 1930s. You're oh, okay, I mean, I get it, but there's some from the 1800s that are still standing.
That's true.
Yeah.
So he journeyed out here. He actually landed in Tacoma, and then arrived in Everett in the summer of 1891.
Living in a town?
As most did, probably.
Probably.
They built a house.
Right. Yeah.
You get the Sears catalog and then go buy a house.
For what was it, $5?
Something like that.
Something like that. I actually love that. And to my understanding, we do have some Sears catalog houses in the Everett area. I don't know which ones they are. That'd be fun to figure out maybe for the next podcast.
We should totally find them.
Yeah. I know they exist. Good old Sears. I wish that was still a thing, kind of. Why not come up with
Well,
I guess like new construction, but at the same time, they were so unique in the way they were built.
They were technically, even at the time, because it all came in a kit, even though it was wood, some of them were even prefabricated too. So you just pull the wall up, put it all together.
I'm for that.
Right? I even think our modern equivalent to something like that, it would be like a manufactured or even a modular home now.
Yeah.
Right? Shipping containers are very popular.
Yeah. There's a company called Boxable. I don't know if you've seen them before.
Yes.
Theirs is like literally pop the walls up, and it's amazing. I know, we're always sending each other houses. Those are all very cool. But Frederick arrived, and his big first large commission was the Rudebeck Hall that was on Everett Avenue, which I talked about. Everett Avenue was wood plank roads and mud, but it also had the trolley running down it. So it was kind of that main drag.
Stone building.
Yeah, little stone building. And then stone and wood. I know that most of our wood buildings are gone, from my understanding.
Mm-hmm.
Fire, usually.
Fire.
Do we have a great fire of Everett? I feel like every city has one. I'll have to look into that.
Things.
I think we had one. We had to have had one.
I think every major city goes through a fire.
Yeah, like Seattle had one.
Because of some cow kicking over a lantern.
Totally, and there was wax, and that's a thing. I'm going to research that one for y'all. I'm going to figure out about Everett and if we have a big old fire. But the Brue Building was completed in 1892, and it still stands. It's 3010 Everett, which I think is awesome. So
I drive by it on a regular basis.
I was going to say, I think I do too. I need to pinpoint exactly which one it is because I know it, but I don't know it.
They have changed the face of the building, so it's doesn't look like a brick face building. It looks like it has wood planks in the front, which I think is a very mid-century look. So it aged a little bit that regard, but the actual structure itself is still there, along with a whole line of buildings too.
Okay. One of my least favorite things about the Riverside neighborhood, which is so frustrating, but I understand why they did it. Hewitt and Everett Avenue was like a downtown, right? There were hotels, there were businesses, restaurants, everything that you could want was just kind of right there on the river front. And accessible. And Hewitt still has some of those old buildings, and every time I drive by, I'm like, I want to own all of you because I think they're absolutely gorgeous. But in the 60s, they decided I-5 needed to go somewhere. I call it the 5. I'm from California. So the 5 had to go somewhere.
Right there.
Right there, right? So they just tore down so much beauty.
Yeah.
They put a freeway there. I'm like, it hurts my soul. Just as someone that lives there, how cool would it be to have that community?
More of a downtown.
There, another downtown, right?
Not that we don't have a downtown.
Just having a second downtown, I think that's just a missed opportunity. So, that's my sadness of the Riverside neighborhood is that it just lost a lot of its history and culture because of a freeway. But the bonus, I can get on Highway 2 and not have to sit in that traffic line.
That is true.
I love it. If I gotta go to Lake Stevens, I can get there. Or Snohomish, I have no problem getting onto the trestle.
I will say this because you mentioned the Everett Avenue Bridge way back when and its traffic problems.
It's horrible.
It was not much resolved with the inputting of the Highway 2 trestle.
I know. So I have to get off at the Broadway exit to go home. Because that traffic is horrendous. There's no way. And then I just pray that I'm carpooling so I can get on the Broadway carpool exit. That's even better than the regular Broadway exit.
Right.
I have a whole thing about the Broadway exit. I'm constantly bugging WSDOT to at least mark that it's an exit-only lane, 3 miles out.
I know what you mean.
Do you know what I'm talking about? It tells you,
I know it's an exit-only lane.
Because we live here, but nobody else gets it. So, it's 5 or 6 lanes, and everyone's just sitting in the exit-only lane, blocking traffic.
Right.
I feel like it could be avoided. I'm not an engineer of the roads. But I
can't talk to him. Just so you know, traffic hasn't changed in the last couple hundred years. So
no.
It's still a problem.
It was with horses. It's now with cars. It's just an ongoing problem.
Yep.
And Everett seems to be this
conjunction.
Yeah, I don't know what's going on there. And then when you're going into Marysville, no go. It's just bad.
Well, I mean, especially over the last couple of years with people moving out of the greater Seattle area and from Bothell and Bellevue and everything like that, and moving up into Snohomish County, right? Into Marysville, into Lake Stevens, into Snohomish, all on the other side of the river from Everett. We are very much the focal point of all of said traffic.
Right. And I mean, we're that big city after Seattle and before, Bellevue really, or not Bellevue, I'm sorry. Bellingham.
Bellingham.
Silly.
Uh-huh.
Mount Vernon's pretty big.
It
I think
is.
it's a little bit smaller than us, though, in terms of,
Recession.
yeah. I'd say Bellingham's like the next big one.
Mhm.
But we're big. We also were a huge, I mean, we still are a huge bank area, right? So
Yes.
you had to come to Everett if you had to do banking. So it's always been a hub. It'll continue to be a hub.
That's the goal.
We're just growing and growing and growing.
I think so.
Yeah. I am going to say, I don't know if our editors can do this, but I want to put a picture right here of the Swalwell's real estate office. It's the first real estate office of Everett from 1892. It's cute. They owned a lot. They built a lot. They were kind of the go-tos with renting, lending, and buying. So
Because monopolies were still a thing then.
still a thing, right? You buy as much, and they're always saying buy as much land as you can.
And they did.
And they did. So, yeah, the Riverside Neighborhood, super cute, super walkable. Every house, I feel like for the most part, looks different.
Very
You'll see,
craftsman-like.
totally.
Right.
I still haven't found a house that looks like my house besides my neighbor's. So, like, we'll go walking trying to find a comparable. It doesn't really exist. So, like, everybody's its own unique.
That's cool though.
Yeah, I like it. One of my
Especially for those that don't like cookie cutter neighborhoods.
Totally. One of my favorites right now is if you're on the walk, I think it's Baker. One of the neighbors there has lifted their house. They added a basement, they're adding a first level, and then the original house is going to be on the second. So keep an eye out for that one if you're looking for some fun.
A basement.
I know.
Basements aren't that common.
I know, and I'm jealous. I feel like they're just getting so much square footage. But yeah, I've been watching it. I just keep looking at it and going, wow, as I drive by. So keep an eye out for it. I'm excited to see it
I'd like to see the
finish.
that one.
I know the house itself was probably my favorite in the neighborhood, like one of like top 5 for
Right.
sure. And then I drove by one day and it was like in the air, I don't even know how many feet, and I was like, what happened? And then it started, being built up. So I'm excited to see how it'll look and how they'll keep it, because it kind of has that craftsman vibe to it. Can they keep that aesthetic, or is it
Right.
not ruined, but just different now? I don't know. We'll find out.
It's very interesting.
Yeah. In terms of walkable, though, favorite bar, the fireplace.
The fireplace, and not because you.
I do
Work
bartend there every once in
part-time.
a while, guys. So if you are bored and you see,
Want a drink.
yeah, you want to drink. Fireplace is just one of my favorites. It was a bar in the 20s. I
Ooh.
forget what it was called. Something Mugs. I don't remember off the top of my head. And it's been the fireplace since like 1943, I believe. So when you talk about old buildings, this one's been around as a bar establishment forever. And it's still going. So
That's cool.
yeah, that's another Everett Avenue old building that's just still doing its thing. Totally haunted.
Totally haunted.
Totally haunted. It screws with me. I lock one of the doors when I'm closing up at night and it'll like come undone all the time. And I'm like, okay, friends, stop it. Like, we're trying to leave. It's time to go. And I'm like constantly pushing the lock again. And then it moves. Like, it's probably air and like, some kind of science thing, but in my mind, I'm like, it's that ghost screwing with me again. So
All houses settle, or all properties
that's
settle.
true. They do all settle.
So, and it constantly moves.
What?
So don't worry.
Don't
if
worry.
you're not the superstitious type, it's just
Yeah.
your house moving about.
And you know what? I think that's fun. Every house, at least in our neighborhood, everyone's always talking about how their floors are uneven. And it's like, yeah, that's just how it goes.
Mm.
The houses are old.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What's great about the Riverside neighborhood is and kind of why even our neighborhood, which is kind of neighborhood to the Riverside, it feels like you're living within a housing community,
Mhm.
but you're so close to the actual downtown
Yeah.
of Everett, where restaurants and everything like that
It-
are located.
It's a straight mile if I walk down 19th to get to the Grand Avenue Bridge,
Mm-hmm.
which is easy, right? And then probably another mile to be downtown if I go
Mhm.
south. So
It
within
doesn't
2
take-
miles of walking, driving, biking, whatever you want to do, you can get down there. So it's the best of both worlds. I think we're technically part of city limits then, yes. So we're just,
I would say
yeah,
so.
I think we're just the city,
But
even
yeah,
though we're a neighborhood of by the river,
by the river,
with
with river views.
river views.
Mm-hmm.
I'm pretty jealous though. There's some houses with those Cascade River views and I'm like, ooh,
There is true.
I want one of those.
On a clear day, it looks pretty good across the riverside.
And it's a 360. If you could just think about it, if you could put like a tower on your property, like a lighthouse, you could have a view of
Everything.
the sound, the Olympics, the Cascades, the river, Mount Baker, Rainier.
Yes.
Like, there's some really cool views. I always say that if I could have the North Star building
yes.
over on, is that Hewitt?
It is on Hewitt. Yeah.
I guess that's technically the Riverside Neighborhood. I want that building, everybody, because it has an amazing view. It's worth looking at. It's one of the older ones. I didn't do any history on it. I should have.
It's so interestingly positioned too.
Oh, totally. It's random. It's like
right
3 stories or 4 stories right over the overpass.
You're like,
Not sure how this one got salvaged. The train station is right there on the bottom there. Yeah, it's kind of an interesting building, but it's got to have amazing views up on top. Like $1 million view. Easily.
$1 million view.
I think a lot of Everett does. And it's interesting to see our house prices be kind of as low as they are for our views, because they're the same as Seattle's views, and those all go for millions plus. And then there's us sitting in that 600 to sometimes we'll get $1 million view depending on where you are, but
very much depending on where you are.
For the most part, we're still under $1 million, which is interesting, I think.
That's okay.
I'm fine with it.
So get a house while you can.
Yeah, get a house while you can, because I think it's going to go upwards, and that's just, I think people are sleeping on our city.
That would be the theme for all of our neighborhoods.
Yes.
Everyone's sleeping on it.
Totally. And like, again, us millennials, we love that historical, like, bring it back kind of vibe. And, you see TikToks of like brick, real wood flooring,
It's all there.
All of it's there, and they're rehabbing it, and they're making these houses pretty historically accurate, which I think is beautiful and gorgeous. And I think it's just going to make these homes that are 100 plus years old last even longer. Another 100
They've lasted so long. So
I know, it's cool. I love our little town. I think it's old.
It's old?
It's creepy.
It's not the oldest.
It's ghostest. It's not the oldest, but just fun. I don't know.
It's fun.
It's got a good vibe.
It has got a good vibe. Well, I think we'll leave it there for now. And then, join us in the next one. We're going to be exploring a brand new neighborhood for the next one.
Another neighborhood.
So we'll keep you apprised of all of that lovely stuff. But as always, my name is Kevin Daniels.
And I'm Ashley Turner.
And see you guys in the neighborhood.
See ya.